I believe one of the biggest challenges for businesses today, in fact for parents, for people working in the community, is that the pace of change going on right now is incredibly fast. Some behavioral psychologists actually believe, it's hard to say, some of them actually believe that human beings are now driving change faster than we can adapt physiologically, which is a bit scary. So let me put this in human context. The oldest living person in the UK is a woman named Neva Morris. Neva was born in the year 1895, making her an incredibly ripe 117 years old later this year. But for Neva, 117 years is just one lifetime. And look how the world's changed in that lifetime. When she was born, the telephone had just been invented but not yet commercialized. In France, the Lumiere brothers had made the first motion picture, but there weren't any theaters for anyone to watch it in yet. Neva would be a teenager before radio came along. She'd be middle-aged before the first black and white TV sets, and she'd be past retirement age before the first portable music listening device, which was called the transistor radio, if you remember that. I have a 10-year-old who has an iPhone today. He picks it up whenever he can so he can play games, listen to tunes, watch movies, or theoretically call or text anyone on planet Earth. Neva, in one lifetime, has witnessed the first automobiles, the first man-powered flight, the first transatlantic and around-the-world flights, the first man standing on the moon, the first mission to Mars, and the first space station, permanently floating above Earth and theoretically accessible to anyone who's reasonably fit and can afford the fare like Guy Liberté from Cirque du Soleil. So from horse and buggy to space tourism in one lifetime, that is a staggering amount of change. And as technology advances, that change is getting faster and faster. Look what's happened to the world since Neva turned 100, the year 1995. So back in 1995, the internet was just beginning to be commercialized. It's estimated there were maybe 10,000 websites back then. Today there's well over 1 billion. You could never count them. The internet has brought together what's now approximating half of the entire population of planet Earth in real time. Now put that in context. It took radio 38 years to get 50 million, just 50 million listeners. TV, just 13 years to do the same thing. Facebook, just over 1 year to get 50 million people using it. And the biggest television network in the world, we think of like the BBC as being television. The biggest network in the world is YouTube by a long shot. They now serve up over 1 billion videos every single day to 500 million regular users. And this thing that some people still call a cell phone, it's not a cell phone, it's a cell text. 10 times as many text messages are sent on mobile devices as phone calls. In fact, any of you who have kids know that only people over 30 would actually think of making a phone call on one of these things. Why would you phone someone when you can text them, dude? That's how the world is changing. It's changing incredibly quickly, how we think of each other, how we interact, how we view the world. It's all changing, and the changes happen predominantly in the last 17 years. So what? Interesting statistics. What does that mean to us? Well, here's what I find interesting driving leadership in this type of change. Despite the man-made change that we've just seen in the life of Neva Morris, despite the fact that all you need to do is go out there and look at nature and you'll see that change is part of the fabric of the universe, despite the fact that every cell in every human body changes every 7 years, showing just how much a part of that fabric we all are, despite all that, some people still have a hard time with change. They resist it. And to me, that is the ultimate human folly. That is like trying to catch the wind. Now, I get why people do it. Change can be difficult. Change means stopping things or letting go of things you're comfortable with, making tough choices, getting outside our comfort zones that we've just seen. So often as humans, what do? We wait for the doctor to scare us before we stop doing things we know are bad for us. We wait for the bank to call before we stop spending more than we're earning. We wait for our relationships to fall apart before we remember it's been a long time since we bothered to say, I love you, honey. And it's no different in the world of business. General Motors did not have the courage to make the tough choices its markets told it to make for 25 years, so it paid the price of resistance. Atari invented video games and then stood still while other companies created a huge industry. Polaroid invented instant pictures and then were crushed by digital photography. And sadly, so was Kodak recently. The list of companies that were once leaders in their industries but that didn't adapt and change includes some of the world's once great brands that went from being leaders to being losers. Now contrast that with organizations and with leaders and teams in those organizations who did have the courage to make tough choices. The greatest of them all was IBM. Lou Gerstner stepped in 1993 when they were losing $8 billion a year. They had 120 days of cash. He ripped the guts of the company out. The organization that commercialized laptops and mainframes got out of hardware altogether. It was gut-wrenching and the greatest turnaround in business history. In the mid-90s, Jack Welch over at GE said, "We're in so many businesses, I don't even know what we do. So here's the rule, we'll be number one or number two in any industry, or we'll get out of that industry altogether," forcing his managers to rule the businesses and run the businesses on a very tough set of rules. They threw off some great businesses, but a good choice. McDonald's was hemorrhaging cash in 2002 as consumers moved to healthier food choices, so they spent billions of dollars redesigning their menu with pushback from many of the store owner-operators who said, "You can't do this, you're going to cannibalize our core burger and fry customers." But it was the right choice, the right business decision. So what can we learn from them? We got the organizations who didn't change and the organizations who did. One thing, ultimately, change for all of us is a choice. You choose to change, or you choose to stand still. And if you choose to stand still, history has shown that there is a very, very large price to pay for that. The one thing that you can learn, if you look back just through the life of Neva Morris, 100 and some odd years, is that all of the people who have made the biggest dents in the universe, as Steve Jobs liked to call them, are all people who are fearless about change. There are people who've got some idea in their head that most often that people said, "You can't do that, it's impossible." They ignored them, they were passionate and committed about their idea, and because